Hi, my name is Kelly Jakubowski, and my presentation today is entitled, Is Music Distinctive as a Cue for Autobiographical Memories? Comparing emotionally matched music, sound, and words as retrieval cues. So the main topic I'll be talking about today is music-evoked autobiographical memory, which I'll abbreviate as MEME. And the definition I'll be using is this is the experience when listening to a piece of music brings back personal memories from one's past. And these could be memories of very specific events or more general time periods from one's life, as well as people and places from one's life. So there's been a variety of research already suggesting that memes may be different to autobiographical memories cued by other retrieval cues. So for instance, Amy Belfi and colleagues have found in a couple studies that memories evoked by popular music were more vivid, so contained more perceptual details than memories evoked by photographs of famous faces from the same time period as the music cues that they used. Some other research has shown that meme descriptions contain more motion-related and spatial language than autobiographical memories cued by word cues, suggesting that memes may be potentially more embodied than other memories. And we've published some research just last month showing that memes were rated as more vivid, positive, and emotionally intense, and contained more social and perceptual content in the descriptions of these memories than memories evoked by watching television. So although we have accumulating evidence suggesting that memes are different to other autobiographical memories, we don't really know much about why that might be. Why would music cue different types of memories than other retrieval cues? So one potential explanation is that the events that are coupled with music are maybe particularly distinctive, emotional, and or self-defining, so thereby better remembered than events that are coupled with other stimuli such as famous faces or television. However, one other potential explanation that's not mutually exclusive from that is that there may also be differences between the retrieval cues themselves that can lead to different types of memories being evoked. So one thing that we know about music is that it's an inherently emotional stimulus, and we know from the autobiographical memory literature that emotional retrieval cues can impact not only the emotional qualities of the memories that are retrieved in response to them, but also various other phenomenological qualities of these memories. So the aim of the present work was that we wanted to compare music to matched emotional stimuli in terms of the number of memories evoked, but also the phenomenological qualities and emotional content of the autobiographical memories evoked by these cues, to see if music still demonstrated any advantage over other cues that were essentially equally emotional to the music. So we ran a series of 4 experiments. All 4 experiments used instrumental music without lyrics, and all the excerpts of music we used were selected to be unfamiliar excerpts to the participants, although we selected genres of music that were intended to be relatively familiar. So in the first experiment we used film music, and in the next 3 experiments we used varied genres of music, including classical, pop, rock, jazz, and so on. In the first 2 experiments, we compared music against environmental sounds. And again, these environmental sounds were selected to be relatively familiar sounding, so things like a crowd cheering, animals at a zoo, and so on, although the specific excerpts, sound excerpts themselves were unlikely to have been encountered by participants before. And in experiments 3 and 4, we compared music against single words, concrete words in the third experiment, and more abstract words in the fourth. And in all experiments, we matched the music against the comparison stimulus in terms of its expressed emotions or perceived emotions, in terms of the arousal and valence of the music and the sounds or words. So here, just a side note to explain why we only used the film music stimuli in the first experiment. In looking at the results from the first experiment, we found this unintended consequence of film music, whereby it seemed to be eliciting rather generic memories of previous experiences of watching films, or in some cases, playing video games. If you look at the graph here, the red lines are these media-related memories, so film and video game memories, which were rated relatively low on properties like how energetic, important, social, unique, and vivid the memories were. So this is why in experiments 2 through 4, we switched to using a more varied range of genres of music in order to elicit a more varied range of memories that weren't just memories of watching films. So this plot here gives you an idea of the matching procedure we used. So for instance, in experiment 3, the piece of music labeled 346 was matched to the word money, and both of these were positive valence high arousal cues. And in experiment 4, we used more abstract word cues, and so that song was matched to the word glory. Now I'll play you an excerpt from that song, and I'll also play you the sound that was matched to that song in experiment 2. So here's the music. Okay, and for one more example, song number 1334 was negative valence high arousal matched to the word tornado and the word insanity. Here's the music and also the sound that was matched to. So we ran these experiments online via Qualtrics, and participants were recruited via Prolific. We presented the music, sound, and words as cues for autobiographical memories in repeated measures design, so all participants saw both types of cues, which were presented for 30 seconds each, and they saw on the screen a button that said, "I have recalled a memory," which they were asked to press as soon as an autobiographical memory came to mind. And if one didn't come to mind during the 30 seconds, then the experiment automatically advanced. So moving on to the results, we found in all 4 experiments that music cued significantly fewer memories than both the sound and the word cues. And music also evoked memories consistently more slowly across these experiments, so it took longer to generate a memory. However, across all 4 experiments, we also found a significant interaction between cue type and cue valence in their effects on memory valence. So specifically, music, regardless of whether it was a negative or positive piece of music, cued relatively positive memories across the board, whereas negative sounds and negative words both cued more negative memories than positive sounds and positive words. This graph I've shown you is from the first experiment, but this result was replicated across all 4 experiments. In terms of additional results, so in experiment 2, we didn't find many other differences between the sound cued and music cued memories. So they were not significantly different, these memory types, in terms of how vivid the memories were, how unique they were, so whether they were sort of one-off experiences or events that happened quite regularly. Ratings of how social the memories were, and ratings of how personally important they were. So this suggests that emotional music and emotional sounds that are matched on these dimensions do tend to cue quite similar types of memories. We did find more differences in experiments 3 and 4. So the word cued memories were rated as more unique in both experiments than the memories cued by music. And this could be because when we used word cues, we wanted to use words that people new. So the words may be more familiar than these unfamiliar pieces of music, and therefore allowed more differential access to memories of more specific events. Okay, so in terms of the main takeaway points from this research, we found that music was consistently less effective than matched emotional stimuli, both sounds and words, in terms of the number of memories evoked by the music. However, we found that unfamiliar music and sounds otherwise evoked phenomenologically fairly similar memories, finding no significant difference between vividness ratings of these memories, how important they were, and ratings of their content, how social they were, and so on. We found more differences between the music and the word-cued memories, which could at least partially be due to familiarity differences between the cues, the fact that we used highly familiar English words for English participants versus clips of music that were familiar sounding but not specifically familiar excerpts. And finally, we found that music in these 4 studies at least was particularly unique in terms of being able to evoke positive memories regardless of its emotional valence. And it would be interesting to see whether this finding extends to other aesthetic objects, following the idea that music and aesthetic objects have these sort of lack of real life consequences, and so thereby even negative stimuli may generate these positive memories. So thanks very much to my co-author, Thomas Erola, the Leverhulme Trust for funding, and thank you for listening.